Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Mirav Fatemi. Getting right back into it here in our next segment, we're going to take a look at Game 2 of this series kicking off tonight between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Indiana Pacers, a series that's been circled in the Eastern Conference for a while now. Damian Lillard obviously being injured for the last 3 weeks or so with blood clots in his I think it was in his right calf. Um, Giannis still performing as an MVP candidate in the regular season, still playing at a very high clip. The Milwaukee Bucks are still an unbelievable team. On the other side, we still have the Indiana Pacers led by Tyrese Halliburton, still led by Halliburton. Obviously, still having an incredibly deep team with Miles Turner, with Pascal Siakam. Just overall, overall great team in general. A deep team, a well coached team by Rick Carlisle. It's just gonna be they played unbelievably in game one. They took Giannis's best shot in game one and didn't even flinch at it. Finishing that game 117-98. It just wasn't close overall. But this is more about what's next for the Milwaukee Bucks than it is about the Pacers, I'd say. Starting on that side, Giannis finishing with 36 points, 12 rebounds in that first game. That's about it for good news about the Bucks. Outside of Giannis in that game one, the second leading scorer for this team was AJ Green and Gary Trent Jr. with 15 and 14 points. I just want to let that sit for a second. This is the Milwaukee Bucks team. This is the Milwaukee Bucks team that's been created around Giannis. They haven't created it like they did like the Mavs. They haven't built the team around Giannis like the Mavs built it around Luka last year. They haven't built a team around Giannis like the Timberwolves did it around Anthony Edwards. They haven't built the team around Giannis like the Knicks built around Jalen Brunson. Overall, they haven't built the team in like the Warriors built around Steph Curry. Overall, this Bucks team is just incredibly shallow. I talked about the Lakers being shallow with three guys. Imagine one guy. That's what the Bucks have right now. And I know they have Damian Lillard injured and that there's still time for Damian Lillard to come back. I'll give a little bit of an update on that in a little bit, but Giannis can't do it by himself. He can't. And this is why over the last few weeks or over the last few months, over the last couple of years, but especially over the last few months, we've heard little rumblings that Giannis possibly might want out in the summer, especially if the Bucks do not contend for an NBA title this season. They don't even make last year. They didn't make it. Who did they lose to last year? They lost to the Pacers last year. In that series, 2 years ago they lost to the Miami Heat. 3 years ago, before that, they lost to the Boston Celtics. I know in 4 years they won the NBA championship, but in the last 3 years they haven't made it to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they haven't made it to the second round since 2022 when they lost in 7 games to the Boston Celtics. This is more about Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks than it is about the Pacers, and this is more about the Bucks getting Damian Lillard back than it is about anything else in this series. If Damian Lillard can come back and give Giannis some help, even then, they still lost by, 19 points? At the same time, is 19 points going to be enough of a difference that Damian Lillard can carry? Damian Lillard is upgraded right now to questionable in Game 2. He's expected to either come back tonight or in Game 3, one of the two. He is available to come back tonight. I don't think that news is going to come out till about noon because they're doing practices right now. They won't come out till the coaches do their press conference, their media press conferences, and even then it might not come out until 6 o'clock tonight. That's the tendency of the NBA teams, especially in the playoffs, not letting the Indiana Pacers have any idea on the health of Damian Lillard. That's probably what they're planning for. That's probably what they're planning to do if I had to speculate on what to expect here over the next few hours before game 1 or game 2 kicks off. Game 2 starts at 7 o'clock tonight, so maybe not 6 o'clock, maybe 5 o'clock. But somewhere around there is when we're gonna get the final injury report, get the final update on how Damian Lillard looks, what his health looks, his health update overall, if he's going to play in game 2. It is not the biggest deal, I'd say, if they lost game 2. I absolutely would not recommend it with how deep, with how shallow this Bucks team is, with how they don't really have a lot of experience. They really don't have a lot of experience on the offensive end of the ball, the Milwaukee Bucks. So this game is a little bit of a must-win game for them. But at the same time, this series does switch back over to Milwaukee after game 2. So they do have a chance overall. They will have a chance to win both if they can win both of those games. And Milwaukee has won the season series over the Pacers 3-1 in the regular season this year. It's still nothing to sneeze at. I still think the series goes 7 games, regardless if Damian Lillard comes back tonight or in game 3. I think there is a world where the Pacers could go up 3-1 in this series, but I really do think that the Milwaukee Bucks have the firepower in Damian Lillard and Giannis to push the series to a game 7. They could win 2 games in a row, win one in Milwaukee, win one in Indiana with their backs against the wall, and then come back in game 7. And I think at the end of the day, I think the Pacers are just too deep. The Pacers are too deep of a team, and that's where I want to go next. The Pacers, how good they are this year, because they are probably one of the most underrated teams in the Eastern Conference. Not only in the Eastern Conference, in the NBA, period. With Tyrese Halliburton, Andrew Nembhard, a player that really blossomed in last year's playoffs, Aaron Nesmith, who's continued to blossom over the last 3 years or so since leaving Boston, Miles Turner, who's been there forever, Pascal Siakam, who's, I believe, no, he's not NBA Finals MVP, but is an NBA champion in Pascal Siakam, Rick Carlisle, TJ McConnell, Obi Top. They just have a 7-man roster who can go into double-digit scoring. Like, imagine if the Indiana Pacers roster, if the Lakers had the Indiana Pacers roster, had their bench. I think it would be borderline unanimous about how, maybe not unanimous, but the Lakers would be either number 1 or number 2 favorites to win the Western Conference if they had that team. That is just how deep the Pacers are this year. And I think that depth is going to be the difference maker, and not only in this series, but in future series to come. I don't want to say it yet just because I'm not. We'll talk about second round of the playoffs when it kicks off in about a week or so. So just stay tuned for that. But the Indiana Pacers are one of my dark horses to win the Eastern Conference. If it's outside of the Detroit Pistons, well, I put them ahead of the Detroit Pistons as dark horses to win the Eastern Conference outside of those top 2 seeds in the East. I really think that's how good the Pacers are, especially with Tyrese Halliburton, how he's able to facilitate that offense, how he's able to spread the ball around to not only the interior, to the outside with Nembhard, with TJ McConnell, with Obi Toppin, Benedict Mathurin, who's growing as a shooter. I think he's either second or third year in the NBA. I believe it's his second year. This Pacers team is just incredibly young, incredibly deep, and they have a lot to prove this year, especially after making the Eastern Conference Finals with an incredibly young team last year. They remind me so much of the Detroit Pistons this year. That the Pacers of last year remind me of the Pistons of this year, with a chip on their shoulder, with playing with house money. A lot of people writing them off as a young team that you don't really have a lot of expectations for. That's the Detroit Pistons, and that's the Pacers of last year. And this Pacers team of this year has an even bigger chip on their shoulder, with an even greater confidence level than they did last year. That's just my take on it. I think the series goes 7 games, and I think the Pacers will win this series in 7 games, regardless of the health of Damian Lillard. But expect that news about Damian Lillard later today. I wish it would come out on this show. I wish I could report it right now, but we got to call. I don't have Shams Karania's number to call him and give him a quick buzz to see what that update is. He'll probably give that update later today. But I'm gonna take another short break. When we come back, we're gonna take a look at the there's another series on today. We're gonna take a look at the Orlando Magic. They have game 2 of their series against the Boston Celtics later tonight. We're gonna give an update on Jason Tatum. He had a little bit of an injury scare in game 1. Yeah, overall, we're gonna give an update on how the Magic can make this series a little bit more interesting, and how Jason Tatum's injury can influence this series moving forward into the playoffs, depending on how injured he is. I'm gonna take a short break, and when we come back, it's gonna be Boston Celtics versus Magic in the first round.